Welcome to the video wall. Rich and LSV here with you. Now, Luis, these draft archetype blueprints, we debuted them at Pro Tour Arm and Ket. What's the purpose of them? Because I think a lot of people are confused. They can play the exact 75 that their favorite players play in Standard, but obviously you can't do card for card in Limited. But that doesn't mean you're not basically delivering the same plan as your favorite players in Limited.
Yeah, these are supposed to give you a guide as to how you can draft this kind of deck, knowing that these cards are a little interchangeable. There's a lot of cards that can slot in at the 2 slot, at the 3 slot, and you're trying to understand the basic strategy of this archetype, for example, black-red.
Okay, so we're calling it afflict aggro, which may or may not be strictly true, but what's the basic idea behind it?
Basically, you want to curve out with aggressive creatures and then use the fact that red and black are the removal colors. They have good combat tricks, they have good removal spells, and they have a lot of damaging creatures that are like of an aggressive bent.
All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to work you through a sample deck. Now, this deck, it's not packed full of rares. It's the kind of deck that you're going to get, we call it a meat and potatoes deck. It's the basics of the structure of black-red. Let's start our curve right down at the bottom, and here we go. So we've got 1/1-drop Bloodlust Inciter, and then 4 spells. Now, Kindle Fury and Magma Spray, they're not really 1-drops in the sense you're not going to play them on turn 1. I presume, Luis, that Bloodlust Inciter is what we would most like to do on turn 1.
Bloodlust Inciter is a very powerful turn 1 play. With the debut of Hour of Devastation, there are fewer 1-drops. Arm and Ket had a lot more. You notice this card's from Arm and Ket, and you are less likely to be able to start with a 1, but if you do, like Bloodlust Inciter, that's a very powerful effect on the game.
We've started hearing that players are playing 3, 4, 5, 6 colors in draft. It seems that way. Traveler's Amulet, therefore, looks like it's the kind of card that belongs somewhere else. We're just a straight black-red deck. Why do we want a card like Traveler's Amulet?
It does help fix your colors, depending on how many ones you would play. Like, you would want to play Traveler's Amulet. Some decks like this may not want to play it. It's kind of a placeholder.
All right, so 5 1-drops. Let's move along and take a look at our 2-drops. Well, a stack of creatures this time. It's almost literally the reverse of our 1-drops. We've only got 1 spell. It's Blur of Blades. Now, we've put a rare in because you're going to open some nice rares. Maybe you open Earthshaker Kendra. Is that a first pick for you, kind of thing?
It's a solid one, yeah.
Okay, so that's your 2/1 haste, Eternalize comes back, then it's a 4/4, making sure something can't block. You've got your Burning Fist Minotaur. Kenra's all the way here, Defiant, the Earthshaker. And then Kenra Eternal, 1 and a black with Afflict 1. Now, it doesn't sound like much, Afflict 1. How do you rate Afflict as a mechanic, just in general?
If you're aggressive, it's exactly the kind of mechanic you want on your creatures because you put your opponent in a position where no matter what, they're taking damage.
One of the nice things about Firebrand Archer is that you don't need to put it into the red zone to get the 1 point of damage. That's just, oh look, it wasn't a creature, hey ho, 1 point to you, thanks very much. So we've got Bloodlust Inciter into maybe a Kenra Eternal. Are you planning on attacking with Kenra Eternal even if you know they're going to kill it? Are you basically looking to just go hit it for 2, go again, suicide for 1 point? Is that the play pattern?
What'll happen often is you're going to get a couple attacks in when it's free to do so. You attack in their 2/2s or 1/1s. Then it's going to sit there for a while. Then later, when their life total is low enough, you'll start attacking again with it, knowing it's going to die.
Right. And of course, a card like Kindled Fury is exactly what you need to make sure it doesn't die. It looks like it's going to get beaten by, you know, a Harrier Naga, a 3/3, something like that, and then it's just like, turns out I'm 3 power first strike, and you blocked. Thanks for taking the point as well. Blur of Blades, again, worth noting the 2 damage, because this is a deck that keeps just incrementally putting that little bit of damage in. Why don't we go to 3 and see what we've got here? So, Kenra Scrapper, Banewit Punisher. Let's talk about the Punisher first of all. Is this a card that you see as a 4 casting cost removal spell rather than a 3 casting cost creature? What's the way that it works?
What's nice about Banewit Punisher is that it's both. You can play it on turn 3 and pick off if they have a Firebrand Archer or something like that, or you can just play it on 4 mana later in the game to just kill their Rampaging Hippo.
Now, we said that this was not a super powerful deck. We're not trying to show you the best draft deck of all time. You've got a Cartouche of Ambition here, no trials to go with it. So that combo isn't here, but maybe you're going to be able to draft that at some point. Removal, Lethal Sting, removal, Cartouche of Ambition, proper removal. open fire. So certainly, increasingly, our spells are looking to kill things with the Magma Spray. Kindled Fury acts as removal as well. What's Marauding Bone Slasher like as a card? It's like pretty vanilla 3/3.
In a deck like this, it's basically a 3/3 that can't block. You're not going to get to spend a lot of time on defense, but that's fine. This deck's an attacking deck. In Black-White Zombies, it just becomes a full-fledged 3/3 with an upside. Creature type zombie is an advantage in that deck, but here you just play it to fill out your curve.
Okay, talking of curve, let's go up to number 4, and this is what we've got. We've got our Lurching Rot Beast, the 4/2, Gravedigger brings something back, 3/1 Fly Carrion Screecher, and the Afflict 2 Frontline Devastator. And that's the card, a kind of signature card for where Afflict really does sort of make people pay the price, because once you get it attacking, so much potential damage if you let it through.
When you are sending your frontline Devastator into their 4/4, your opponent doesn't really have a great choice. They can take 4 or 5 damage if they don't block it. If they block it, they're taking 2 and trading off, usually trading up. And then if you have a trick like Kindled Fury or Torment of Venom, you end up in a really good spot.
Torment of Venom, we've talked quite a lot. There's 2 damage to creature's controller here and there. There's the Afflict things going on. This has lose 3 life on it. But does that ever really happen, or for the most part, are they always going to be, as soon as they see a black player, they're like, okay, I need to keep a land in hand ready to discard?
I would say it really depends on the stage of the game. In the beginning of the game, they're going to lose 3 life a lot. On turn 6 or 7, they're way more likely to want to discard a card to prevent that life loss.
All right, so finally, let's go up to 5. We've got Horror of the Broken Lands, we've seen before from Armenket, 4/4, can get bigger, but basically a big body. And then the top of our Afflict curve, Manticore Eternal. How do you rate that card?
Very good in a deck like this, guaranteed damage. It also, because it's forced to attack, your opponent's often going to want to block, and then you've got your Kindled Fury or Blur of Blades to really get them.
Right, and finally, worth just pointing up at the top here, 16 land, couple of deserts we've got for you. Nothing special, no Ramonat Ruins, because that's something you're going to love to have in this deck.
For sure.
But this is pretty average to good deck. So there you go. So just to finish off, Luis, give us turn 1 to 5. What's the dream scenario with this deck, roughly? Plot us a curve.
You would love to start with Bloodlust Insider, but if you don't, even playing something like a Horn Kopesh on turn 1 is pretty nice. Really, what's key, though, is to play a 2 and a 3. If you can go 2-drop, 3-drop, what you do after that, that's kind of up for grabs. But you really want to play it like Kenra Eternal into like Kenra Scrapper. Then on turn 4, you have a Torment or an Open Fire to really take out their blocker.
All right, so Black-Red Afflict, it's pretty aggressive. If you can get that Inciter to get you going, you're off to the races. Final thought, upgrades. What are the kind of things that we would want if we were starting to get greedy? More Blur of Blades, they're common.
Open Fire is one of the key cards. Great 2-drops are really important, so you're really looking for good 2s in black and red, which there aren't very many, so you'd love to be able to pick a couple up.
All right, so there we are. That's your insight. So if you're drafting Black-Red at your local game store or on Magic Online, that's a kind of guide to what Black-Red might look like. We'll be right back after these messages.